To read on all of this and all the other news happening today from South Dakota Republican Senator, a prominent top Republican, John Thune. Senator, good to have you.
Nice to be with you. Thanks, Neil.
What do you make? I mean, this is still early. $1 billion, I guess, to the Saudis and us is chump change these days, but it's a pretty big missile deal, and we seem to be very tight with both the Saudis helping them and them helping us. What do you make of this arrangement?
Well, I think they've been an ally for a long time on a lot of levels, and obviously right now they help check in that region of the world the influence of Iran, and I think it's important for us to continue to maintain that relationship and to work together with them as partners to try and bring stability to that region of the world. They are leading the force against in Yemen. They're helping the government there against the Houthis, which are backed by the Iranians, and so there are lots of ways in which our countries are able to cooperate, and I think we need to continue that if we're going to keep some sort of stability in that region, which is so important to the stability of the entire world.
You know, of the markets, as you're aware, Senator, of course, you're not as much as a nerd as me and live and died by this stuff, so touche to you. But there is a fear expressed by some traders of all political persuasions that, you know, what goes is coming down, it's coming down again. Washington spending's out of control. You guys can't seem to agree on this. Maybe you do in the measure on the spending plan is to avoid a government shutdown, but that the debt is building, a lot of excesses are building, and there's a world of hurt coming, including now a potential trade war with the Chinese. Are you concerned?
I am. I mean, I think there are a lot of things that we need to be concerned about. We've got to get spending under control. We've got to deal with this debt and this deficit, which, of course, I think means we've got to reform our budget process. But we have to play the long game. The market has its day-to-day ups and downs and gyrations. But I think as long as we focus on policies that are creating conditions that are favorable to economic growth, and we're seeing that. You saw the unemployment rate is now down to its lowest level in 17 years. The number of people re-entering the labor force in the month of February was at the highest in 38 years, over 800,000 people coming back in. Wages are up, and we're starting to see good growth in the economy. And a lot of that, Neil, is because of policies that this president, this Congress have put in place. Tax reform, regulatory reform, certainty when it comes to the legal process through the appointment of good judges to the courts. Those are all things that I think are shaping the economy right now in a way that provides hope and optimism for the future, which is why consumer confidence is up. That said, we've got to get fiscal discipline back in place here in Washington.
But it's nowhere near in place, right? I mean, the House Freedom Caucus, they just threw up their arms and said, no one seems to care about it. Republicans run the show. They have the House, the Senate, the White House, and yet this debt is growing faster than me circling a Ponderosa buffet, you know?
Well, it's two things. I mean, we've got to reform entitlement programs, which the Democrats have had no appetite for. We tried to do that with Obamacare replace and repeal last summer. We put in place for the first time real entitlement reforms in the Medicaid program. Obviously, that failed by a vote. We need more Republicans, more conservatives in Congress to get the entitlement programs reined in. That's the spending side. But on the other side, as I mentioned earlier, you got to have growth in the economy, and that's why these policies that are pro-growth and pro-jobs are really important. And so it's a combination of both. It's fiscal restraint, but it's also pro-growth policies. And I think we can get this back on the right track, but it does start fundamentally, in my view, with reforming our budget process. And that's something that I and many others around here have been advocating for a long time. And I hope that, again, another omnibus spending bill like this will renew the emphasis on serious, meaningful budget reform here in Washington.
Are you worried about a trade war?
Well, I am worried about what I see happening out there. I do think that could undermine a lot of the good things that we're seeing in the economy, and the market obviously is reacting to it. But I think, again, we want to make sure that when these trade policies, and I understand the president's desire to clamp down on China and to deal with them in a way that helps them understand that we are serious and that they're going to have to get serious when it comes to stealing our intellectual property, but that we do that in a way that doesn't create disruption in the market. And obviously we're worried about retaliatory actions taken, particularly directed at agriculture, that could be very detrimental and harmful to the middle of the country, but to the whole country. And so this is one of those things they need to proceed slowly, with care, very targeted, very selective in how they go about this. I think these indiscriminate, wide tariff policies could be incredibly harmful if they lead to an escalation of a trade war. That's not going to be good for the economy in the long term.
You think the president made a mistake?
You know, I disagree with him on this issue. I know he feels passionately about it. I've heard him speak about it. I do think that he wants to see reciprocal trade. We agree with that. But again, I think how you go about that, the policies you implement, who you direct those at, thinking about the consequences and the unintended consequences and how those retaliatory actions might occur, what they might hit, being prepared for that is going to be really important. And so I hope as they move forward, they do it in a very thoughtful way and in a way that would limit the ancillary harmful and adverse impacts that could occur to the economy. I appreciate the fact they've scaled back some of these actions already, but I guess I would encourage them not to get us in the middle of a trade war. I don't think that's in anybody's best interest, and I think it could undo a lot of the good progress that we've seen in terms of economic growth as a result, in many respects, because of the President's policies and working with the Congress.
All right. Senator John Thune, very good having you. Thank you.
Thanks, Neil. Appreciate it.